What's up, everybody? I'm so pumped about my guest today. His name is Andrés Spyker, and he pastors Más Vida Church in Mexico. Más Vida has 15 campuses, and it is a global church, and so we're going to get so much out of the podcast today. We're going to be talking about how to have healthy patterns, rhythms, anchors in your life so you can lead efficiently from a simple life. Today, I'm so pumped to have a good friend, Andrés Spyker, with me. What's up, Andre?
Hey, man. So good to be here.
Do people call you Andrés or Andre?
Andrés.
Andrés, but for your American friends.
Andrés.
Andrés. No slack.
That's right.
I even have to roll the R's.
Dude, my pastor calls me Andreas. And I'm like, he's too old for me to correct him now. He's the only person I won't correct.
Andreas. You're like, yes, sir. Yeah, whatever.
Yes, sir.
So does anybody get away with calling you Andy?
No.
Nope.
Only childhood friends. If they've known me since when I was 5, it's okay.
Okay. So, but for me, it's Andrés.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Andrés. Pastor Andrés. So Andrés pastors Más Vida Church in Mexico. And Más Vida, when did Más Vida begin?
So Más Vida originally began as Abundant Life, or Vida Abundante, in 1984 with my parents in Morelia. And my dad, founded it, pastored it for about 20 years. And in 2005, Kelly and I became senior pastors. And I think in 2010, we changed the name to Más Vida because there were so many.
Oh, you changed the name?
Because there were so many Vida Abundantes, Abundant Life in the nation. And the Lord has spoken to us about opening different churches around the nation. And I was like, I don't want to go and come into a city and be like, I'm Abundant Life when there's already an Abundant Life across the street. So out of respect for the body of Christ, I looked for a new name, but I wanted to honor the original name. So Más Vida means more life. And so I honored Abundant Life. Yeah, that's what we did.
Man, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. But did it take courage? Did you feel like that was a risky move at the time?
Yeah, obviously, people in the city were like, man, why did they change the name? They have fiscal problems or what happened, kind of thing. But our church took it real well. A lot of people still call it Vida Abundante for about 10 years, but it
kept calling it the wrong name.
Yeah, but it's perfect, it works now. And I think it's become a very strong name.
So ironically, Bethany started in 1963, and Bethany has always been called Bethany. At one point, it was called Bethany Baptist Church, not because we were Baptist, just because my grandfather was a Baptist pastor, and when he started Bethany, he was like, well, this is all I've ever known, so he called it Bethany Baptist Church until it became abundantly clear that we were not Baptist. and so then we lost the last part of that name. And then when my dad began pastoring, he had a real passion for world missions and for prayer. So he changed the name to Bethany World Prayer Center.
Oh, wow.
And we built a prayer center to pray for the world. And many of my early memories were in that prayer center. And then when I became pastor, I was like, man, so everybody got the name wrong. People would say, it's so good to be at Bethany Outreach World headquarters. People didn't know how to say it. So I was like, we're just going to be Bethany Church.
Nice.
And but ironically, when I took the leadership of the church in 2011, I felt like we needed a new name. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that was just people telling me, Bethany needs to be fresh again. It needs to have a new life. And so I thought about changing the name, and I was on the cusp of changing the name. I'm not even going to say what I was going to change the name to because it was really bad. It was a horrible idea. And thankfully, God stopped me, and that's why we were still able to call Bethany Bethany. But
if I could have kept the same name, Vida Abundante, I would have. I just couldn't do it in good, good faith because of where we were going.
No, Más Vida is incredible, and I didn't even know that you guys had an earlier name.
And it honors the name,
Yeah.
But I think Bethany is so strong, and just the name Bethany is great.
Okay, but this is hysterical. So my grandfather, he was 44 when he started the church, so it's probably like close to your age, right?
Uh-huh.
So he started Bethany, and he pastored it for 20 years, and my father pastored it for 28 years, and when I became pastor, I felt like, okay, if I'm going to keep this name, I want to know the significance of the name. So why Bethany? I know that this is a biblical city, It means house of bread. It also was a place Jesus loved to go, to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus's house. Okay, so all these possible ideas. So my grandfather was on his deathbed. So he was in this retirement home, and he was just super feeble, weak. And I went in one day and I was talking to him. I said, Papa, you got to tell me, like, why Bethany? Why? Give me the significance of the name Bethany. And he said, well, we were just a few of us. We were around the living room. And I said, well, if we're going to gather, we need a name. And somebody said, what about Bethany? And we all said, that sounds good. and I was like, that's awesome. That's it. I
love it.
That's it.
I love it.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Some of the best things come in conversations like, hey, that works.
Yeah. All right. So, but man, you and I had a conversation yesterday that I think is super helpful for leaders. And I felt like we just kind of dig into it a little bit. So both you and I lead really busy lives, and we travel. We have families. We have young kids. There's a lot of pressures that I don't think people would quite understand unless you do what we do. But with the chaotic nature of our lives, there's this super important principle of finding a rhythm and finding like predictability, finding, and a word we used was anchors, just in our lives, and for our emotional well-being, for our mental well-being, for our physical well-being. And I think in our culture, people run so hard, many just chasing money, chasing fame, chasing all this stuff, and they burn out. Their marriages give way. They lose their families, and it's because they didn't have a sense of healthy rhythm or healthy anchors. And so I feel like you model that really well. In just our in our friendship, things that I've noticed about you is that I can sense that there are boundaries and there are guards around certain things in your life that you want to keep safe.
Right.
Why don't you talk a little bit about your journey in discovering that you need this?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, my pastor, Paul Johansson, 86 years old, he's always, modeled what your dad has also talked about, his morning devotions and just a lifestyle that's really connected to his wife, to his family. And so you have this guy that's like, traveling around the world, doing amazing work for Jesus. And at the same time, he's just an everyday guy who just prays and eats breakfast with his wife and, has this rhythm in the morning. And I'm like, man, how do you do that? So for a while when I started out in ministry, actually when it became sort of successful, I was just going. So I had very good rhythm when first got married, had kids, play soccer with my kids every day and have a prayer life, and had a rhythm even with fasting and exercise and then it got so crazy. I mean, I was traveling so much, so often, plus all the work at home, plus all the work at church, plus, being a friend or being whatever. And it was just so crazy. So when I was like 36, 37, I basically hit a wall emotionally. And I had a couple of panic attacks that I'd never had in my life. Wow. Contrary to most people who have either an anxiety bout or a panic attack, for me it was a real huge wake-up call, because when my mom was 35, she actually developed bipolarity. And so I saw that happen in my mom and what that transpired for my family and for my dad and for everybody. And I was determined I was not going to let that rule over my life. And so I could see now older, that my mom had some signs early on that she could have really heeded to, and somehow she didn't. And so she just let it basically go full, steam ahead with her mental illness. And so I think we all have tendencies in our mind, in our emotions, to become unhealthy. I don't think you can say, I don't have that problem in my family.
Right.
Because mental illness or emotional illness or unhealthiness shows itself in different ways for different people. You can become addicted to money, addicted to substance, addicted to whatever, all kinds of stuff, or you can just lose your motivations. You can lose grip of your everyday life, and you become this celebrity, and you lose touch with your family, that kind of stuff. So, but it's all part of unhealthiness in your emotions, in your mind, in your body. So when I turned 36, 37, and I have these, anxiety things and panic, I took it really seriously. I mean, I was like, nope, this is not going to happen the rest of my life. And I became violent about it. And so I actually, I asked my board, I said, look, I can preach, so many Sundays a month, and I cannot go to the office, be at a meeting. I can't see anything administrative. I can't one more meeting. I need 6 months where I don't have to be in the office at all. And they gave that to me, and I just focused on, I went to counseling, and then I just focused on developing prayer rhythm, exercise rhythm, and family rhythm, meals, and with my wife, and reading. Those are the 4 things I did. I'm going to just invest in reading, and praying, doing exercise, and my family. That's what I did for 6-7 months.
Wow.
And got into vitamins and eating healthy. I cut down sodas. I cut down all kinds of unhealthy stuff and food in my life. And in 6 months, I was able to get myself back together.
Wow.
And it's, I understand everybody's story is different. But for me, I understood if I'm going to be healthy in my mind and my emotions and my spirit the rest of my life, I got to have certain anchors, as we were calling it, to my life that make me feel normal, healthy, and connected, grounded to everyday life. So for me, now it's a prayer walk every morning. I read my Bible, and then I go for a prayer walk, and I put my earphones on, and I worship, and I pray through the Lord's Prayer. It's become a real, solemn, awesome, easy encounter in a way, because it's a 5-kilometer walk, and I just, go through the whole thing. I do that every day. Before I had a hernia, I would do a gym routine, and now as soon as my hernia is done healing, I'm going to go back to my gym routine after that. And so those are 2 things I do in the morning. And I have lunch and dinner every day with my wife and my family. There's just certain things in my life that I will not negotiate with, because it makes me normal, connected to God, connected to my family, and connected to my health.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a muscle. Everybody has a limit to what they can do with a muscle. You put me under a bench press with over 100 pounds, I'll be fine. Put 200 pounds there, and I'll be struggling. 300, I'll pop something, or die trying, to get the thing up. And I think all of us have emotional and mental breaking points, and even people who don't feel like they have it, they definitely have it. And there's that breaking point, and you can only handle so much pressure. You can only handle so much, and for leaders, for pastors, especially, and there's a social pressure. There's a demand for content, for communication. You're balancing vision, but also balancing home, and there's so much pressure. So it's like you can't afford not to have what we're talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, and I started to realize I don't have to be disconnected from my family, or disconnected from life, or disconnected from friends, or disconnected from church to come up with great content. My content is found in my connection with my family. It's found in my connection.
Awesome. Like, talk about that. Instead of seeing it as a dual thing, where it's like if I'm with my family, that's a separate thing altogether. Instead of ministering from that place.
Yeah, like I understand that we have time management, and so you're at the office for a few hours and you're at home for a few hours, but you don't. It's not like you're limited to become a great preacher or pastor because you have small kids, or because you have a demanding life at home. That actually makes you a great preacher if you know how to harness it and have it feed into who you are. So for me, most of the things that God uses to speak to me, break me, change me, are a lot of things that happen in my everyday life. And so if I'm real with God about those things and I'm real with my family about that, I can actually use that as communication power, in my life. And I'm trying to find an example of that. For example, one of the things is I'm a very perfectionistic guy. Okay, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and so one of the things that I really battle with is being able to eat with my family at the dining room table without telling them how to eat. Okay. Like, dude, you're holding your fork the wrong way. You're chewing I almost have to turn off my brain or look the other way in order to enjoy my family at a meal without having to direct their every step on how they eat. Right. So
that's funny.
So last year, for example, my wife is like, we just had a pandemic. We're eating every single meal together, for weeks on end. And my wife is like, after the third week, she's like, listen, if you don't stop that, I am not eating with you ever again. I'm like, but somebody has to teach him. Well, she's like, do it at another time. Do not ruin our family meal.
Bro, that is funny. That is really funny. Oh my
so
gosh.
I next morning, I have my prayer walk, right? I have my prayer walk next morning after this conversation with my wife, and I'm praying and I'm walking. And I get to the point where, it's thy kingdom come. So I'm praying for the kingdom of the Lord to come. And I always, pray for the kingdom in my family. And I'm like, give me humility and meekness. And I want to follow you well. I'm like, yeah. And, what do you think about what Kelly said? Yes, I'm just talking to the Lord like that, like, am I right? Is she right? What's going on? And God's like, shut up. He's like, you need to listen to your wife and enjoy your kids. You're not going to have them forever. It's better to eat with them and them have a fun time with you and you love them than to correct every move they make, And I was just broken. Like, I was crying, dude. I know it's like super simple, but I'm crying in my prayer walk, and I'm like, I'm repenting before Jesus and that kind of. So I've been in a recovery at lunchtime where more and more I'm trying to keep my mouth shut and actually enjoy the conversation with my kids. Now, that makes me a better person, a better preacher, because I'm broken, I'm submitted, I have stories to tell, I'm real.
You definitely have stories to tell.
But my point is, I hear pastors all the time, how do you, and it's because my kid, and it's because this, and it's because that. Well, first, if you manage time well, and then don't stress about the normal rhythm of life, but actually harness it. It's who you are. You're part. Your kids are part of you. Your wife is part of you. Your exercise. You're golfing if you golf. I'm trying to learn it, or you're writing more. Whatever it is, it's not a okay. So a lot of guys, for example, their way to cope with pressure is always blowing steam off. They say, "Oh, I'm blowing steam off." And so I need to, I don't know, do this trip, or I need to go there, or and what happens is that you start doing very unhealthy things with the excuse of blowing steam off. And I don't think there's a bad thing to blow steam off. I like riding my motorcycle, I like getting into a Jeep and going up the mountain, and I have space for that. But I'm not like, oh, I need to blow steam off. It's not. Why?
If you're living at that point of pressure to where you have to blow steam, that just shows that there's a lot of pressure building up instead of living at a pace where there's not all that.
And I would say this. I would say there's things that entertainment, which I think is a healthy dose of entertainment, riding a motorcycle, hanging out, riding your Jeep, golf, and whatever. So there's things that entertainment will do for your soul. But there's things that entertainment cannot feed your soul like a healthy rhythm with Jesus and your family can.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if you're only depending on the entertainment factor to feed your soul,
it's coping.
It's not actually health.
Yeah, it's just like using medicine or something to cope.
Yeah.
You're using this thing to cope. But, what I think is amazing about you is you're accomplishing a lot. Like, it's not like you live this life of peace and rest, and what suffers is the vision.
No.
Because you guys now 15 campuses around the world now. You just started a new campus in Venezuela.
Yep.
This is an international church. It's not like you're not producing.
Right.
but you're just producing from a place of peace.
Yep.
And, and I've noticed, I've been to Mexico twice with you guys at your church, and just watching you from a distance, I can tell that there is just a healthy life pattern, of what you're saying. There's just these principles, and you're not just in a frenzy trying to accomplish a whole lot. And it's like the fruitfulness comes out of that place of peace.
So, for example, for me, Eugene Peterson writes this book called The Pastor.
Yeah, I love that book.
He sort of bashes us mega church pastors.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But I love the fact, I was thinking, man, I love the simpleness of what he's talking about a pastor's life. And one of my things is, can I be a mega church pastor with that simplicity? And it's not that I want to be a mega church pastor, it's that God has positioned me. It's not, my obsession is not to become a mega church pastor.
Right.
I'm a mega church pastor just because it's God's will and he positioned me that way and that's what he wants for our lives. But I don't think he wants for my life to have a mega church pastor lifestyle.
Right.
I need to have a simple lifestyle because that's how Jesus lived, operated. And so, I think that I need to.
I totally agree with you. I'm like, I knew I had a kindred heart with you, but that's how I perceive life. It's like, man, I've got to be simple. I don't see the early church leaders, Paul, Peter, these different guys, living just super high profile lives where it's like tons of pressure, tons of. I honestly, when Jesus said, if you want to be a leader, the greatest among you is going to be the servant. It's like you're going to lift others. You're going to be, and there is a certain lifestyle that comes with that. And it doesn't mean, it's not a vow of poverty or a vow of, it's just, the best way to say it is Philippians 2, that Christ put on, like he left something and he put on this humility.
Yeah.
He put on, and you have to intentionally put on a lifestyle that's less than what you could do, less than what you could be, and it's an intentionality to like
I mean, I could travel more often and make more money off honorariums. I could do all kinds of stuff, but it will break something in my life. It'll break something in my life, in my ministry, and my so anyway. Other guys can do it, and more power to them. I have no judgment for that, but I like a simple lifestyle. I like rhythm. I like being able to meditate. I like to be able to watch the sunset. I am if I'm in Morelia, I know which coffee shop to go to. I have friends that I hang out with that will go and just cook grill meat outside 5 minutes outside, like in the mountain. If I'm in Mexico City, I go to the same coffee shop every morning after my prayer walk with my 2 dogs and have the same. People wouldn't think that about me because of the profile of church we have or ministry we have. But my lifestyle is super simple, super just everyday, rhythms, this, that. And why? Because that's what I need. That's what I love,
Okay, so what I perceive about you, just from the time we've been able to spend together, is that you're a thinker. Like you're very and to a possibly a fault. Like you can get up here and just like
constantly
just go.
Yep.
But it's like you've almost adopted this lifestyle as a way to soothe the crazy of you know what I'm saying? You've learned you.
Yeah.
You've learned like this is how I tick, but in order for me to handle what's in front of me, I have to choose this lifestyle. And
you have to become a master at yourself in a way. You need a master's degree in who you are.
Right.
So obviously we all need a doctorate degree in who God is, but we need a master's degree in who we are, in the sense that knowing God is the best way to knowing ourselves. And it's not just because that's how we get to know ourselves, but it's so important to know who you are, because then you're able to do things within the limits of who you are. We were sitting here at a podcast table that would probably sit 4, maybe 6 people. If we were to want to have a meal here for 20 people, this would not be cool. Right. And so I need to know what kind of person I am, what kind of personality I have, so that I can best serve and set the table for the people around me. And not wanting to, I'm not a banquet table. Maybe I'm a coffee shop table. I don't know. Yeah. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just knowing who you are, your limits, and what you're, set up to do. And so if God wants me to be a pastor of a church in different countries, I'm like, okay, God, I can't say no to you, but these are my limits. I need to do it from a place of having a prayer walk, having a simple lifestyle. If you can do that through me, then go for it.
Yeah.
You know, but I can't break myself.
Right. Well, I love who you are, man. I mean, I think it's awesome. I think one time I was with you, you told me about a book, and it was basically the Enneagram. What do you remember the name of the book?
Yeah, The Road Back to You.
Road Back to You. Okay, so I bought the book and I read it. I never understood Enneagram until then, and I read it.
Yeah,
and it really helped me.
It's very helpful.
It's a great book, but it just it modeled to me that you are learning you.
Yeah,
and you're learning how to lead this life in a good way.
And for example, even the Enneagram thing, I had to sort of graduate from being a slave to the Enneagram too.
Okay, so what Enneagram are you?
Okay, I'm a 1 with a 2.
Okay, so I'm a 2 with a 3.
Exactly, I can see that completely.
Yeah,
completely.
I'm a helper.
Yeah, you're a helper with the performer.
Yeah,
helper with performer.
So
it's funny. A good thing that you're not. I mean, yeah. Anyway,
so I read the book, okay, and when you read the book, you understand all this stuff, and it's different than taking a test. If you take a test, you don't know how to answer some things, and I'm not good at taking tests because I get confused what I am. But when I read the book, it described these different personalities, and I'm like, I totally identify with this. Like, there's no question. So I told my wife I'm two wing 3. And she was like, no, you're not. You're 3 wing 2. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, I don't identify with my wife informed me what my personality was. But
yeah, because I originally read a description to my wife, and I think I'm this, and she's like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
no, wait. I thought I was like what was it, an 8 or a 9 or something like that. She's like, no, I thought I was a 5. Like the guy who analyzes everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, you're not. And so I kept reading and thinking. I got to the 1 and I read 1. She's like, yep, you're exactly that.
So what is 1 wing 2?
So
I know we're way off topic, but
I know. One is a perfectionist.
Okay.
The justice guy.
Right.
He's committed to doing things right, making things right with a 2. So I'm a 1 with a 2. I think that's why we get along, because of the 2 thing.
Yeah.
We're always focused on helping and stuff. And but I had to like graduate from. I think a lot of people become slaves to the Enneagram.
Well, people think it's demonic. There's people send me stuff like.
I think Marcos here thinks it's demonic. I'm looking at his eyes.
I knew Enneagram sounds like pentagram or something.
Yeah, and it's just so I had to graduate from that, because if not, you're like, oh, am I actually exemplifying my number right or not? What is this?
Oh,
well,
wow.
why think that or not think that, or why am I correct? And so I think it's good to know, and it gives you a frame reference, and it helps you sort of understand. Okay, I'm not crazy. There's actually more people like me, but that doesn't define me.
Right.
Jesus, my family, and me, that defines me. And so, yeah.
Well, dude, you are the man. Thank you for taking the time to talk. And so much good stuff came out. I think overall, if you're listening, the biggest encouragement that Andrés, I struggle
You're getting
with,
it. You're getting it.
That the biggest encouragement we have for you is don't be scared to live a simpler life. Don't feel like you have to put on an image of like a superhero. Find strength in simplicity. Also find strength in rhythm. Find strength in and it's not complicated.
No.
And we're talking about simple things. We're talking about spiritual, emotional, mental, physical,
family
type stuff. And you figure out, man, what can I just anchor myself in with these things that give me predictability, give me simplicity.
And a lot of people are hungry to achieve, that they think they need to become complicated to achieve greatness. Well, one of the pastors that I admire a lot, his name is Andrés Corson, in Colombia. His church was, when I met him, it was 10,000, grew to like 42,000 of butts and seats. And right now he opened simultaneously another 5 campuses. He's probably at 60 to 70,000 butts and seats a week. Plus he has the greatest online following YouTube channel in the whole continent. His church has the biggest subscriber.
Wow.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. I mean, I would think they're the biggest church right now in Latin America. Okay. The guy is the simplest guy a pastor could be. And I'm looking at that and I'm seeing guys wanting to achieve greatness, trying to complicate their lives, their family, their health, their everyday. And they're not near as great as somebody like Corson is. And Corson does his own breakfast in the morning, goes ride his bike every morning, simple guy.
Yeah.
Cleans the kitchen for his wife. Like I've been there, at his house.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, man, you know what? Greatness doesn't come out of complicated lives. Greatness comes out of purpose, living the life that God has called you to live, in your everyday. So,
and not to mention longevity.
Because
that's,
exactly.
You can go nuts and blow up and you'll blow up, right?
Yep.
It's like you and I both want to be doing what we're doing until the Lord takes us or until has a different plan for us. And longevity is everything. And the only way you get longevity is simplicity.
Yes,
rhythm,
sir.
Anchors.
I love you, man. You're doing an
you
amazing job here at the church with your family. I love the fact that you ride a motor home and you pull your pickup truck in your motor home and you go different parts of the United States. When you said that, when we had dinner, I think it was with Kelly a while back, I told Kelly, this guy is my guy. I was like, that's what I want to do. And she's like, I don't want to ride a motor home. I'm like, well, Jesus will speak to you.
Hey, dude, it is a cool lifestyle. I mean, you talk about forget the world. You get there on a country road on a motorhome with kids going nuts, it's the best.
And I love that you do that.
Yeah,
and I love that you model.
And we both ride motorcycles, so we have. But so does every other person in their 40s, right? Suffering from midlife crisis. All right, Andres, you the man. And for everybody listening, check out our podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And we'll see you next week.